Hi, I'm Dark Steel, and this is yet another Prepper Friday rant. Wait a minute. Is that? It is. A sweater! Over another sweater! This is insanity! Speaking of insanity, I think I just lost credibility for anything that I'm about to say. But stick around to the end of the video anyway, because towards the end of the video, I will give you our Prepper Tip of the Week. The subjects of today's video are morale and motivation. But before we get started, I wanted to talk briefly about the current events of the United States. The government has been shut down, partially, for 35 days now, and no end in sight, while people are growing hungry. This is becoming more and more ridiculous every week that I'm able to say that. Also, the other day, the Supreme Court ruled that transgender people can now be banned from the military. Why? Regardless of my feelings on one way or another on that, because I don't want to get into my opinion on that. I don't even feel like I have the right to an opinion on that, because it has nothing to do with me. But why right now? Going after something so volatile anyway is going to cause people to be at each other's throats. But doing it while tensions are already high is an interesting move from our government. Okay, now that I got that off my chest, let's get back to the subject of today's video, which is, as I mentioned, morale and motivation. Let's look at the definitions of these words. First off, we've got morale. Morale, the confidence, enthusiasm, and discipline of a person or group at a particular time. Now we're going to go into the definition of the word motivation. Motivation, the reason or reasons one has for acting or behaving in a particular way. The general desire or willingness of someone to do something. Okay, so first I thought we'd start with motivating, and I went straight to this, thebalancecareers.com, 10 ways to motivate your employees. So I thought that this was an interesting way to look at things because if we're talking leadership, a lot of the same rules apply. You're just going to have to fill in whatever words work for you. But I feel like the same strategies apply from the workplace to your prepper group. So I thought this would be a fun place to start. While the saying, you can't motivate anyone, they have to motivate themselves, may be true from a psychological perspective, people are more likely to motivate themselves when a manager creates a motivating workplace environment. Employees give 110% because they want to work hard, not because they have to. Often, a good manager will use certain skills to drive the workforce towards optimal efficiency and satisfaction. So let's look at what they are. Create or highlight the meaning of good work. The most important thing any leader can do to create a motivating environment is to make sure that the work every member is doing is meaningful. I believe that's kind of self-explanatory from there. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit. But yeah, don't have your workers doing something that they can't see the value behind. Even if it's something that you know the value behind, make sure that they know the value behind it, because it's hard to keep motivation up if you don't feel like what you're doing is for a reason. Hire high performers and get rid of underperformers. Okay, I'm going to let you come up with what this one means to you, because in a post-SHTF situation, getting rid of underperformers could mean a lot of different things. And like I said, I'll let you think of what those things are, but it doesn't hurt for them to know it's a possibility. Just whatever that happens to be. So high performers tend to be self-motivated to begin with. When you create a team of high performers, they end up feeding off of each other. The standards are raised, the energy level increases, teamwork improves, and there is low tolerance for anything less than excellence. Don't micromanage. No one likes having a manager breathe down their neck. In fact, it drives employees crazy because they feel like they can't be trusted to do their job well. Very important. Your job as a leader, if you are a leader, is to delegate to people that you can trust. If you can't trust somebody, go to somebody that you can. Then trust that they'll do the job. The result is the important part, not how they do it. If you are one of those people who thinks everything must be done their way, and that is the only way, you don't have any business being the leader. You need to step down and let somebody else do it, because delegation is the most important thing for motivating your team, and motivation keeps morale up. That's the whole point of today's rant. Promote team accomplishments. As a leader, it is your job to be your employees' PR booster. Make sure that their good work gets noticed, recognized, and appreciated. Now, there is a fine line here. Somebody who walks around patting everybody on the back and saying, hey, you're doing a good job today, is taken as insincere and people don't work as hard for that person. So you want to pull back slightly and make sure that you're only rewarding behavior that's truly worth a reward, making sure that it's seen that you appreciate a standard of excellency by only rewarding truly reward worthy work. But don't ever let somebody work and work and work expecting that and then not reward it. You need to keep a watchful eye on it and make sure that people get rewarded when they do excellent work. Because what ends up happening is if you do set that standard and then somebody works and works and works, then that standard set and they're expecting it, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But the first time that their expectations aren't met, that causes a negative feeling that can grow into something bigger down the line and cause a lack of motivation. Minimize the rules and bureaucracy. As long as your team is focusing on what's really important and performing at a high level, cut them some slack. I agree, but don't take this rule too far, because rules, laws, structures are what's going to hold you together. If you start being too lax, then people start manipulating loopholes in your rules. You need to be a strong enforcer of what rules you think are important. It's just about making sure that you minimize the amount of necessary rules to enforce. Treat people with respect. I don't feel like I need to read the paragraph under this. Just treat people with respect. If you don't know what respect is, then again, I question your ability to be a leader, and so I'm not talking to you. Get personal with staff. Get to know your employees as people and learn about their families, career goals, and show that you truly care about them. Yes and no. Okay, again, we have an important balancing act here. It is important to make each person feel like they are respected and valued and everything like that, and for them to feel like a person. However, there's a non-human element to a work environment that's actually very beneficial. When let's take a doorman, for instance. If every person that walks past a doorman at a door, his entire job is to stand there, greet you, open the door, close the door. If every single time somebody looked him in the eyes, said thank you, started up a conversation, his productivity would go down. But also, he would feel a little awkward. This exchange of one-on-one contact that personifies him, even though he is a person. At the end of the day, he deserves to be treated like a person, and that's where you need to focus on this. But while he's doing his job, this looking him in the eye, saying thank you, starting a conversation like you should any person that you respect, creates an awkward lull in productivity. It is actually far more important that you just pretend that that's an automatic door and just keep going. And then at the end of his day, and I know a lot of people are going to have a problem with this statement, but trust me on this one, I have seen this at work. I have felt this. I have been in the service of others, and I would personally rather just work and be left alone to work and then be treated like a person when I clock out than have every single person treat me like I deserve a hug. Just move on. Just get work done. The productivity will go up, the awkward moments will go down, and altogether, even though it's contradictory, even though you feel like that's the wrong thing to do, altogether, it makes for a happier work environment. If everybody is just a well-oiled cog in a machine until the end of the day, when they all go back to being people. And again, if you disagree with my points on this, then go ahead and disagree with my points on this, and we can have a conversation in the comments. I understand that my opinions are not solid fact. If you think that another way works, then that's the way you should do things. I just don't. That's not the way I see it. Set a good example. Be motivated, enthused, energized, and passionate about your own work and the work of your team. I fully agree with that. If you're not doing work that you think is fulfilling, then why the hell are you telling anybody else to? I've often been told even, don't tell somebody else to do something you wouldn't be willing to do yourself. You might not have the skills to do it, and that's why you're going to them. But if you think that it's dehumanizing, if you think that it's demeaning to do it, and that's why you won't do it, then you have no right to ask somebody else to. Encourage camaraderie during work hours. Take your team to lunch and bring goodies to your team meeting to celebrate milestones or just to lighten things up. Okay, again, yes and no. If you overdo the treats, if you overdo the nice things, they come to expect it. And then when you don't do that, you have a decline. You want to watch how many times you reward people. And it's, again, a nice balancing act. You need to make sure that you're rewarding them often enough to keep them motivated, but not so often that they just think of you as the guy that comes around and passes out the treats. A dog that is fed a treat every single time it does a trick will stop performing the trick when it stops receiving the treats. However, a dog that is given a treat every now and then for performing tricks will become like a gambler at a casino, coming back and playing the game to see if he wins this time. Because there's this idea, this excitement that, is this going to be the time? If you know it's going to be the time, it becomes a set standard. It becomes how you expect to be treated. And when you're not treated that way, you say, okay, then this isn't my job. If I'm not being paid, I'm not going to do the work. So you want to treat people with good treats, big treats, something that they really want every now and then. Pepper it in there. Make sure that they get it often enough that they know it's a real thing, that it's going to happen every now and then, but not so much that they expect it to happen every time, because that's when you lose your morale. Pay people what they are worth. While pay is not a motivator, it can be a demotivator if people feel that they are unpaid. That is exactly what I'm talking about. While pay is not a motivator, pay most definitely should be a motivator. And maybe the pay in a survival situation is just knowing that the weapons that they crafted will protect their family, that the food that they gathered will go to feed everybody. Pay should be the ultimate motivator because it is the reason why you are there. But when something becomes a set standard, we stop caring about it. It's human behavior to just stop caring if something becomes expected. I don't know. I think it just means that people are unappreciative in general. But absolutely, pay should be a motivator. Pay, when you go to work every day, you should be like, oh my God, I've been given the opportunity to earn money. But no, you go to work and go, I have to be here. You don't have to be there. Quit your job if you feel like you have to be there. And then you can go hungry. You have to eat. You have to sleep. You have to protect yourself from the elements. You do not have to go to work. Going to work is a privilege, and being paid is a bonus on top of that, and should motivate you to perform at that privilege that you have been given. Yay! We're to the end of the video. We're to the end of this thing here. Okay, so I will post the link to this so you can read it yourself. And on to the prepper tip of the week. So once you've actually managed to put your group together, once you've actually managed to grow your little society, and even if you're just trying to get there, even if you haven't put it together, you might be thinking it's important to protect whatever you've got, and I fully agree with that. So one of the things that we can do is put together barriers. Now, there's other reasons for barriers, because you could also just be talking about keeping in your livestock. You could be talking about a lot of different things. But whether we're talking about a 10-foot wooden palisade or just a regular old barbed wire fence, it's going to take a lot of time, effort, and resources. And if you're like me, you don't believe that there's a whole lot of time left to do this, and you might be understaffed in trying to get this done. So what do you do then? Here's a simple barrier option that doesn't even look that bad and is strong as hell. This section isn't as strong as it could be if I just added on corners and went along as I go, which is kind of the plan. But my children and I were able to build this in a single afternoon using nothing but post hole diggers, a pickaxe, a few axes for cutting the wood, and our bare hands. There is no extra resource used in this. No wire, no nails, no nothing. And just by stretching some cedar trees around, wrapping back and forth, we were able to create a pretty sturdy wall that will at very least hold livestock in, but if done right, could also slow down invaders. So when you're considering constructing a barrier, this is not a bad option, and that's my prepper tip of the week. Alright, so that's the end of my video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and tell me what you think in the comments below. I, as always, expect us to have an open conversation. My viewpoints don't have to equal yours, but let's keep the trolling at bay and have a conversation. Open up to each other and really express what we think without being at each other's throats. I believe that we have the ability to do that. Anyway, that's all. Like I said, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next week on Prepper Fridays.